Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the IB Podcast. I'm your host, Cesar Romero, and today I have the pleasure of having Doug Dandurand joining us for this episode. And Doug, in this episode, we're going to dive deeper into your overall journey into the industry, how you got started, and of course, any advice that you can share with our audience in terms of staffing, or maybe someone looking to start their own staffing agency, right? So, and just to do a quick intro on Doug. He's the current president of TalentLaunch, and TalentLaunch is a network of staffing firms, right? Independently owned staffing firms that the main purpose is to help other staffing firms to grow, right, and be that strategic partner. So thanks so much for joining us, Doug, and welcome to the show.
Absolutely, Cesar. Thanks for having me, man. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. So I want to start us with I was going through your LinkedIn profile, and the section on your bio really caught my attention. And I'll read it for anybody that is watching the video. And I quote, "I'm fortunate that I get to do exactly what I love every day. Right? My job is 100% focused on helping people reach their potential. I have the privilege of working with some of the very talented executives and their teams that are devoted to helping individuals in their communities and find meaningful work." When I read that, Doug, I was like, my heart just like missed a beat, because that is um, at the core of it, right? We're looking to connect people to meaningful work, and we want to be happy, right, with what we're doing. So I wanted to ask you, um, where did this came about, and I guess what are some of your recommendations in terms of finding something that you love to do every day?
No, it's funny that you asked that because that actually came from a conversation that I was having with somebody that asked me something very similar, like, what do you love about your job? Why do you like it? And because I really do wake up every day and I'm excited to go to work. And there's having been in the industry a long time and having different roles, you know, I'm at the point now where I feel like I get to do some of the cool things. My job we have these 10 different operating companies in our network, and we own those companies, but they're each run independent. They're run independently, so they each have their own president. So my job, working with them every day, is helping them be better leaders and making good decisions on how to grow that business. And as a network, we believe in the power and potential of people, and our job is to help maximize that so that people can achieve what is important to them, whether they know it today or not. We want to lift them up. So that's making better, for our teammates, getting them to a point where they're excelling and having fun and doing exactly what they want to do, and helping our talent find jobs that provide for their families and fulfill them professionally. And candidly, the same for our clients. The better job we do for our clients, then the better their job is, the more enjoyable it is for them and the more opportunities they have. So it really is kind of a full circle thing.
I love it, and I can feel your passion, through the screen. So that's awesome. So tell us a bit more about Talent Launch. I understand you became president in 2019, right? How did that come about, and what's been I guess the biggest growth opportunity for you since then?
Yeah, so like I said, I've been in staffing a long time, and kind of various roles, and I've been in a bunch of different verticals. Whether it was light industrial or IT or healthcare, or engineering, accounting and finance, direct hire, kind of all these different verticals. And what really appealed to me about Talent Launch is it's the companies that we acquire. It's less about whether they're light industrial or healthcare
Mm-hmm.
or accounting and finance. It's more about do they fit into our network culturally, and do they have a team in place that we feel we can take them from 25 million to 50 million. So
Mm-hmm.
what appealed to me was more the diversity of all different types of staffing. So because I had that in my background, I knew that I could help, whatever type of company we buy, I feel like I could help them get to where they want to be.
That's amazing. And take us back to the beginning of your career. And every time I ask this question to thought leaders in the industry, like how do you get started in the staffing industry? I get so many different answers. So I'm curious to learn about yours, to see if it follows that same pattern.
Yeah, I think that the one pattern that's consistent is none of us went to school to go into staffing.
Right.
And that's the kind of the standard, and it's true. I got a finance degree. I had planned to go into banking, and so my first job out of school, I was making no money, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a better opportunity. And I drove by a staffing office every day on my way to work. So about 3 months later, I just said, I'm going to go in, and met with it was a franchise, met with the owner, and 2 weeks later I was selling for him.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I really haven't, I did about 6 years in pharmaceutical sales at one point, but other than that, kind of haven't looked back. I've been in staffing ever since.
And when I was doing research, I believe if my math is correct, you've been in the industry for over 20 years, right?
Yeah, all told about 25. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's been one of the, I guess, unexpected lessons for you throughout this journey, whether personal or professional?
Man, that's a great question. So I think probably one of the unexpected lessons is actually I'll go to people are motivated by all kinds of different reasons, and one of the things that I've talked to a lot of recruiters particularly about is don't ever assume that you know why that candidate is making a decision. And and if you get a recruiter that is really focused on the activity part of our business, I've got a source, I've got to interview, I've got to submit, I've got to get into that kind of that train versus stopping and genuinely caring about that candidate to find out what are their true motivators, and ask them why they want to do this versus other things. And again, I guess that personal lesson is we see so many people, and we talk to so many people on a daily, weekly basis, that if you get a little jaded by that, if you stop to treat everyone as an individual, then you're just going to be average. It's really the ones that find that way to genuinely care make a difference.
Yeah, that's perfect advice, especially for recruiters. And since we're on this topic of recruiters, one of the trends that we're seeing in the industry is that technology is disrupting, right, how recruiters recruit, right? And I wanted to get your perspective and your advice, right, to recruiters that might be getting disrupted by technology, and they call them recruiterless platforms, right? Where the recruiter, in my opinion, is shifting a little bit, right? So what are some of the things that you're seeing in regards to this trend, where recruiters are getting disrupted by the technology?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, Cesar, because it is real. I mean, that is absolutely happening. Starting, we kind of started first seeing it 18 months ago or so, maybe 2 years ago, but it's becoming more and more robust. And candidly, we're big fans of it. We actually we've bought our own talent platform software that was built for the registered nurse side of it, and we're going to continue to expand that. But we also want to create that platform that can work in professional staffing and industrial staffing. So we're big believers in it, and I do think it's going to continue to be disruptive. But it doesn't, in my mind, I think the whole idea of recruiterless staffing isn't real. The client has no desire to vet candidates, right? They don't want to. And so we're always going to need sourcing and recruiters that are doing more. Yeah, the algorithm can do the skill match, fine, but you still have to be looking at those nuanced skills, cultural fit and things like that the algorithm can't do. So the way I think these talent platforms are going to work is, the client, the savvy client that can do everything on their phone or their laptop is going to say, I need these shifts or these jobs, these whatever. They're going to put it in there. They don't have to talk to the staffing company anymore. Well, then they're still relying on the staffing company to have properly vetted the candidates that are in their system, so that when the candidate self-selects a shift or a job or whatever, the client still has the confidence that they've been properly vetted, for whatever's required for that role. So I think it's not that it's going to eliminate recruiters. I think it's just going to change how we do it.
I agree with you, and it's when you see the online and the different outlets, they like to get very extreme. But I agree with you. I think recruiters, if you're listening, do not fear technology. Use it as a tool, to make more time for what matters, right? And that is to build a relationship with the candidate, and enhance the overall candidate experience. In terms of trends, what other trends are you paying attention in the industry that are happening right now?
Yeah, I think obviously, like we talked about, that's a big trend, but more than anything, what we're seeing that we're having to modify our behavior is in the time it takes for us to take a candidate from sourced to placed. And honestly, that's what is hurting most people's ability to make placements, is they lose that candidate for whatever reason. They were too slow. And so our big initiatives are around artificial intelligence in terms of the more communication that my chatbot or that artificial intelligence can have with the candidate, that going back and forth with the candidate, where they believe they're talking to me, but it's because it's my identity, my email address, my everything, but we're going back and forth answering questions. That's getting uploaded real time into our ATS. So rather than waiting, you leave me a message, I'll call you back when I get a chance, and leave a message. Now in a matter of seconds, that information is gathered in the ATS, and now I can go to the submittal phase. So by using more AI, we can get candidates to our clients faster.
Yeah, that back and forth kills the momentum.
Right? Every time.
Now, from your perspective, from your experience, have you heard from candidates in general any feedback around these AI tools, chatbots? Because I've seen and I've heard from other recruiters that sometimes candidates would prefer a human to be doing those interactions, but I can see how the tools can actually take care of that back and forth, and very repetitive tasks. But I wanted to ask you if you've heard from the candidate side, like what their experience is with these tools.
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think there's kind of two answers. One is, our founder, a guy by the name of Aaron Grossman, is just this incredible visionary. He goes a lot by this 80-20 rule, and and you're going to have 80% of the candidates that are focused on, if you can get me the right job quickly, however you make that happen, I'm happy. You might have 20% that, I don't want to talk to the chatbot. I don't want this, right? And I think there's definitely some truth to that. But I think certainly in the last 3 or 4 or 5 months, we've seen because it's become so competitive for candidates, they candidly can call a lot more shots than they used to, and right now, what I'm hearing is, I want to know what job options I have so I can select the best one.
Yep.
And so if that means more interactions with a chatbot, so that they know that my job's a viable option compared to something else, then I think they're fine with that. Versus if it took so long and they never found out about my opportunity.
I agree. If I were a candidate, which probably will be, I'm still super young.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I would prefer that.
Right.
And since,
You're the 80%.
right, yeah, I don't know. I have limited patience when it comes to like slow processes. So yeah, I'm the part of the 80%. Now, since we're talking about candidates, right? There's a big trend, that it's called the great reshuffle, or the great resignation, right? And this whole
Yeah.
concept of the war on retention. And I wanted to get your perspective on this. Like, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's real.
Mhm.
In fact, we were feeling pretty good that we'd kind of skated by and hadn't really been impacted by that until Q4 last year. We lost a couple of key people in our services team, and unexpectedly, and so it's definitely real. I think what's happened in the staffing industry that is contributing to this is we got real comfortable with this idea that entry level into a staffing company, entry level position, is going to pay $40,000 or $50,000 a year. But they're going to be eligible for bonus and all this kind of stuff, and so we got real comfortable with that. And the reality was, after a year, then they could go anywhere they wanted and make 60 or 70,000. And so and this is not just every company. And so we were developing this talent for our competition, and so the market has shifted that if you want to keep those people post that first year, you got to be more aggressive up front.
Right.
And if I may, I'll tell you, like, one of our strategies is, we definitely looked at, goosing up our starting salaries a little bit, but now we also, for all of our production positions, once somebody reaches that 9th month mark, where now I think they're going to be vulnerable, we go ahead and, assuming they're on the right path, we're going to give them a $5,000 or $10,000 salary increase on their 9-month anniversary, to hopefully eliminate that distraction of when the competition starts calling and, hey, I'll give you $10,000 more if you come here. So,
right.
And that's worked well for us so far.
That's amazing. So you're anticipating that. Now I'm curious to learn, with that theme of retention, right? Does this happen automatically, or is there a conversation around, hey, we could give you 10,000, but because some candidates might put maybe flexibility or other perks besides money on top of their I guess totem pole of benefits. How do you determine that? Like,
yeah, it's a fair question, because obviously we're doing flex schedules and remote, in certain, so we're doing all that as well. But we tell them during the interview process, here's what you can expect. If you are at plan on your 9th month, we're going to, depending on the role, you're going to get 5,000 or 10,000. And so so we have automation to it in that we get reminders that it's time to happen, but they're reminding us too. Like,
right.
Hey, I'm on plan. So they're invested in it. So we fortunately it's not slipped through the cracks yet.
Yeah, no, that's great. Using automation, like, and the tools that are available. I wanted to ask you about, because I was very impressed by this. TalentLaunch has been in the Inc. 5000 list, I believe, 8 years in a row. And that's not easy to do, especially eight years in a row. So I want to ask you, like, any advice that you could share to other companies or staffing firms that might be looking to grow, not necessarily looking to be on the Inc. 5000 list, but looking to build that type of culture, right, and achieve that type of growth. What recommendations would you have?
Yeah. So again, that's a great question, and candidly, a lot of who we are and our success, I go back to Aaron Grossman and his vision of what he wanted to achieve, and he's had this mindset of creating this $1 billion company and how it's going to happen. But part of that, to answer your question specifically, is if someone was interested in going into staffing and they were going to launch, I would give them two bits of advice. One is absolutely know where you want to go. I think sometimes they get into either by accident or a circumstance that said I'm going to do this, but they've got to have that vision of this is exactly where I'm going to go and how I think I'm going to get there. But more importantly, surround yourself with people that have that will to get it done at all cost. Right. So often, people hire a friend, and sometimes that works great. Right. I'm not discounting that. But don't settle for building a fun team. Settle for I'm only going to hire people around me that want it as bad as I do, and then you're going to achieve great things. Because if you care more than everybody else, it's going to be hard.
Yes, I agree. And what you mentioned initially on being clear or where you want to go, as a leader, it's so important because from there you can guide the company, right? You can guide each department, each individual teammate. But you'd be surprised. Like it's very common to find, at least from my experience, staffing agencies that are not really clear on where they want to go or what they want to achieve. Right? It sounds very simple, but in practice, I don't think it's a.
Yeah, you're right, Caesar, because it's easy to get distracted or sidetracked where where if you don't have that clear North Star and an opportunity comes up, you're like, wow, this could be really good for us, and now suddenly you're over here, and that's not the team you built or the company that you thought you were going to be. Again, sometimes it works out great, but a lot of times you spend enough energy to try to get back on the right path that you're a year or two behind.
Yeah. So now let's say that as a leader, you're clear, you have your goals, you know where you want to go. How do you find people that have similar mindset or are aligned, right, with how you want to grow as a company, as a leader? What systems or questions could you put in place, to ensure, right, that you're giving this a fair shot?
Yeah, that's actually not a fair question, right? Because no one's figured this out perfectly, right? And
right.
So, but we try. It's funny. There was a book called Who, the Who method of hiring.
Oh yes, that's a good one.
Right, talks about making sure that you give a 90% chance of hiring a top 10% performer.
Right. Yeah.
and it's really good, and there's a lot of practical applications if you stay true to it, but it still requires everyone to ask the right type of questions that are meaningful, and it's hard to get an entire organization aligned that way. So a couple of the tools that we've been using a lot more successfully than I thought it would be, candidly, is not to give them a plug, but one is the predictive index, which is it's a assessment that we give every candidate before we interview, and it puts them into a category, basically the type of person they're going to be at work, and that's been very helpful because we have been able to diagnose that there are certain patterns, certain behaviors that if this person has them, they're not going to do well, or they are going to do well, and statistically, it's very, very relevant. And then we just added a cognitive assessment, which isn't necessarily you've got to be a certain level of IQ to work here, but it's more the complexities of the job. Are they going to be frustrating to you, or are you going to be able to handle them with ease? And so the combination of those two have made a big difference for us.
I love that, and yeah, you're right. That's why hiring is complex, right? It's one of the most important things that you can do as a founder, as a leader. But it's also the most difficult, right? And
Yeah,
there's a reason for
absolutely.
it, because there's so many layers. Humans, we're complex by nature, right? So
Yeah, and we're crazy. We do a lot of dumb stuff, right?
yeah, we do. Um, Now, putting our I was gonna say Nostradamus hat, like to predict the future here. Two things I want to ask you in
Mhm.
terms of the industry, and then in terms of talent launch. Now, in terms of the industry, where do you see the industry going? In the next 5 years. What do you foresee with your Nostradamus hat
Right.
being the biggest change and the biggest disruption, and any advice for staffing firms to not fall behind on this?
Yeah, it's actually it's a great question because I would love to be able to say, yeah, the next healthcare run or the next IT run is going to be this skill set, but I don't think it's going to be a skill set. I think I'm going to go back to our conversation on the talent platforms.
Mm-hmm,
I think that is going to be the next big growth
mm-hmm,
area, growth platform, and I don't. What I personally believe in is this isn't uh, a new path that's going to take away necessarily a different path. Like it's not that something's going to go away. I think it's just a new path that's been discovered. So now, the destination of getting to a filled job, instead of being three paths, now there's four,
right.
right?
I
And
like
so
that.
nothing's necessarily going to change. But if you're so we're, like we said, we're still going to need recruiters, we're still going to need salespeople, they still need all those things. It's those companies that have the courage to quickly adapt to this new platform mentality. They're going to get a bigger chunk of the growth.
Mm. It kind of reminds me when job boards first came into the arena, right? People thought, oh, that's it, it's the end of staffing, who needs
Yep.
recruiters? But
Right.
now,
Exactly.
now as what you're saying here, job boards are just part of that avenue, right? It's like a
Right.
it's like a different lane, but still related, right?
Yeah.
So I like
Exactly.
that. And for talent launch, what's in the horizon, for this year or the next 5 years, what's the vision there?
Yeah, we're still very optimistic, very excited about the model that we've created. Again, Aaron's belief was that there's 20,000 staffing companies that have less than 25 million in revenue, and they get stuck for some reason. And we believe that we've got the ability to take them from 25 to 50 to 75, and combined with just a tech stack and a back office that they couldn't afford themselves. We put the leadership together with that. We're very bullish that we can continue to grow our operating companies significantly, as well as make two or three acquisitions a year and filter it. But we've got a lot of good things going on, so we're excited. We think that we can continue to beat the industry growth rates year over year. But it goes back to kind of where you started. It's going to be that we've got to have the right people on our teams that want it as bad as we do.
Exactly, exactly. And one thing I wanted to ask you, Doug, and I just remember this, when I was doing research about Talent Launch, one of the things that struck me was there's a section on your website with the core values of the company. And it struck me because I don't see that many organizations in our industry, at least, that have their core values in there. And I was just like, wow, this is amazing, because this actually helps attract the type of teammates that you want part of the company, but also to keep those that don't align, right? To keep them
Mhm.
off. Like, hey, this is not a place for you because these are our values. And I wanted to ask you, from your experience, do you think this is a necessary, essential component if you are to grow the company, beyond, to 25, 50, 100 million? Do you think this is an essential component of having those core values in there, talked about them, revisited them. Yeah, what's your process there to make sure that everybody is aligned with the core values?
Yeah, man, that's a perfect question. It is essential to our success. I mean, it is front and center on our website, like you said. We we live those values out loud every day. And candidly, there's a cool story in how Aaron came up with this. I mean, and part of that is these are his individual personal values. That this is who he is as a human being, and part of his vision and this direction of where he wanted to take a company was, I refuse to have a company that is different than who I am at home. And so these are his values. He wants to align a company and hire everybody around those values. So we absolutely use those in our hiring process. Honestly, it makes my job
Right.
super easy, because whenever I have a difficult decision,
Yeah,
I just get to look at those core values and it tells me exactly what to do next.
that is it.
Yeah, I mean, and so yeah, man, we live them out loud. It's a big deal. When you go to any of our offices, that they've got that big redwood tree with the values and the nutrients, all over the place, because it is something that is critical to our success. And when we go to make an acquisition, as an example, where if there is any they're not centrally aligned to those values, we don't make the acquisition, because we know it's going to break.
Exactly.
So that, it's that important to us.
So don't skip on core values, everybody, whether you're a business leader or even an individual, right? Because even if you're a candidate and you know your core values, if a company doesn't align with that, then that's probably not a good fit for you, right? So it's so important. Awesome, Doug. Well, as the last question, I always like to ask my guests, especially business leaders like yourself, when you're getting pulled from so many different directions, right? How do you keep the pulse on what's happening in the industry? What any book recommendations, or maybe a course or a training? Yeah, what kind of content are you consuming these days to stay on top of the game?
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question, because I do think that regardless of where you are in your career, it's so important that learning, again, is one of our pillars. This active learning, you've got to always be doing that. So for me personally, I make sure that I've got a 2-hour block of time every week that I'm committed to. That's my time that I get to go do any reflection or learning. And so
I love that.
yeah, and so I do think it's important. And so the two things that came to mind when you said that was books. We're always getting recommended. People always, hey, read this book, read this
Right.
book, and I don't I'm on planes a fair amount, so I can read them on planes and stuff. But
Yeah.
I don't read probably as many books as I should. But the one that I just finished, it's an older one called Extreme Ownership.
Jocko Willink.
Yes, I mean, that blew me away. In fact, I took the easy route. I actually did it on tape as I was driving back.
Yeah, whatever works.
Driving back. It was fantastic. Like, it really, really resonated with me. So that's a great book if somebody hasn't read it.
I love that you mentioned that.
Oh yeah. So and then the probably what's been the most impactful for me in terms of trends and what's going on in the industry is part of a couple different roundtables of other presidents or CEOs in staffing, and I was always hesitant initially to join some of those, because I was like, well, it's not like they're going to know a lot more than I know. The arrogance of the leader. And it was like, from the very first time I did, it's like, oh crap! I mean, this is awesome, because it's like, I can say, hey, here's what I'm dealing with. Here's what I think I should do. And you get 8 or 9 different opinions, and you put that together, and it's just so much more powerful than if you wouldn't have asked. And so I love being a part of those groups.
I love that. So two things there before we wrap it up. One, whenever I need a dose of discipline, I tune into Jocko Willink, and I'm just like, you know what? Stop complaining.
That's right. That's right.
Take ownership. You do it, right?
Yeah. Do something about it.
Yeah. And the second thing there is, I'm picking up a pattern in the industry that, and feel free to disagree or agree with this, that roundtables have a better engagement and return of investment versus a typical webinar. Would you agree or disagree with this?
I personally would agree, because it is interactive, right?
Right.
You know, and I know for me, if I'm going to watch a webinar, you know, for any length of time, the distractions can happen,
Yep.
right?
Same here.
But yeah, and probably do happen. But I feel like if I'm in this roundtable, it's more personal. I owe it to them to give them my attention. I owe it to them to give them my opinion, and so it's just more engaging.
That's what I thought. Well, Doug, thanks so much for coming on the show, sharing your journey into staffing, and sharing your advice and expertise with members in the audience that, you know, either recruiters or staffing firm owners, or maybe someone in the audience that is thinking about starting a staffing firm. Mm-hmm. Hopefully this was a valuable episode to you. And if people were to follow up, maybe, you know, after the episode, what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, I'll give you probably my email would be the best. So it's initial D, then my last name, DANDURAND at mytalentlaunch.com. And I'd certainly be glad to hear from anybody and answer any questions they have. And seriously, Cesar, thanks for having me on. I really do appreciate it.
Excellent. We'll make sure to add it to the show notes. But thank you so much for being so generous with your time, and hopefully we can do a follow-up episode, you know, in a couple of months or a year, just to see where we're at in the industry. But for now, thank you so much for joining.
Absolutely, buddy. Thanks so much.